Hi, I'm Rachel from the Kick-Ass Midlife Method podcast. I'm joined this evening by some women from the Kick-Ass community. And today is quite a special presentation because it's about fueling your nutrition for being able to perform strong as a midlife female recreational athlete. So say you're training for half marathons, a marathon, triathlon, ultras, anything like that. It's all around that subject because when you're in midlife, that changes a lot, and there's a lot of misconception and mistakes made around training for something and getting confused with that in terms of like I'll train and I'll lose weight, and also the effect that it can have as we get older because of hormone change. So for anyone out there, maybe you felt exhausted despite training well. Maybe you feel like you should be hitting everything, but you're constantly tired, or you struggle with weight gain despite doing lots of training. You don't recover very well. You can have GI issues, gastro issues, or you're prone to injuries, even though you feel like you're doing strength training, you're doing recovery, and you keep getting injured. So these are all signs that nutritionally you're not performing, you're not actually fueling correctly for your training. So, as I was saying, we have unique metabolic and hormonal needs. So, fueling right is absolutely crucial to make sure you have better energy, you recover well, and you can perform stronger. And crucially, I'd just like to add that because you're fueling well does not mean that you're going to put on weight. It's if you fuel incorrectly, following this idea that, oh, I've burnt so many calories, I'm going to lose weight. It doesn't really matter. That does not work. So, fueling, signs of underfueling. And I bring this up because I'm training quite a lot of people in the community at the moment for um, endurance running and triathlon. And so some things are cropping up, or I'll see in terms of their nutritional intake on those long training days, that the intake is not enough. So warning signs can be fatigue, sluggish workouts, not just on the day that you're doing something, but afterwards. Like if you're constantly struggling with colds or injuries, something like that, bloating, diarrhea, cramps, signs of gut stress. If you've got a period still, irregular or missing periods, and poor sleep and loads of cravings, then that normally means you're not fueling enough for your training. So what's holding you back? Often what I see in midlife women, what's holding them back is they often, particularly with running, we come into running because it's something that it's really easy to do. You can get out there. Lots of women might have started just after having children. It was a really easy way of getting out there, and you lost weight. So therefore, it's become associated with this weight loss thing, which doesn't actually work anymore for midlife women anyway. But then some women, and I'm not saying that this is anyone listening, but some women can be scared of fueling correctly because they're actually thinking, well, that's going to affect my weight loss goals. This is much better if I'm just burning loads of calories. I'll be losing weight even more quickly. Not the case. Um, so this is what's kind of happening as we have a decrease in estrogen. Actually, we have a reduced ability to use carbs. So I really noticed I've been training for 25 years for half marathons, ultra, Ironman, half Ironman, and I can feel it in my body. I'm quite tuned into my body, that lack of ability to use carbs efficiently. We obviously rely on fat metabolism. Um, we have a loss of muscle mass, and this is particularly relevant if you're underfueled, because when we lose estrogen, we're losing muscle mass unless you're doing strength training. Now, if you underfuel, you will use muscle for energy, which you do not want to do. And then there's this increase in cortisol from stress and training. And that can also add to fatigue, injury, and poor recovery. So we kind of cope with that with the nutrition. So are you all following so far? Does that all make sense so far? Give me a 2 if that is making sense at the moment before we go any further. Okay. So how to optimize carbohydrate use in midlife. Again, carbohydrates have become that almost dirty word for like carbohydrates. Oh, got to avoid carbohydrates because they're gonna, make me put on weight. Carbohydrates don't make you put on weight. Fats, eating too much of fat, carbohydrate, and or protein can make you put on weight. It's just overeating. But in terms of carbohydrate complex and simple carbohydrates, that can be an issue. And when we're training for endurance, you do need you do need fast release. So that's different from someone who is on the Kick-Ass Midlife Method program and they're literally looking for weight loss and they're doing strength training. It's a different thing when you are training for endurance that you will need some fast release carbohydrates, but at the right time. So as our hormonal shifts declining estrogen, it makes our body less efficient at processing and storing carbohydrates. Added to that, as I said, we lose muscle. And that means our ability to store glycogen in the muscle tissue is affected. So again, that's a kind of a double whammy. Hence why, obviously, it's really important to kind of replace that muscle. So you need to prioritize complex carbohydrates, as everybody on the program knows, is about slow digesting carbohydrates that keep your blood sugars stable. But then you need to think about fueling properly around exercise, particularly long training runs or cycles, or those with lots of interval sessions in it. So you need to consume carbs before and after workouts to maximize your glycogen storage for use in the workout and for the recovery. Making sure you support the muscle mass. So strength training, as everyone's doing, but also adequate protein intake to maintain muscle and crucially, after a long session, repair it. It also, if you pair the carbohydrates, obviously with protein and healthy fats, which slow down digestion, prevent spikes. And then crucially for when you're training for endurance is timing your carbohydrate wisely. So you don't want to be sitting around having fast release carbohydrates when you're at work, when you're not really moving very much. Even for weightlifting, it's not that massive. But if you are going out on a long run or ride, you really need to be thinking about how to fuel for that workout before, during, and after. And this is what I'm seeing not happening. So, what kind of carbs do you need for training endurance? So, these are the kind of things I'd recommend before you go out, having your porridge with banana, maybe a bagel. Bagels like, or you can have a white one with peanut butter and banana because you've got a bit of the peanut butter will slow down the release of the energy. But the bagel and banana is obviously going to give you that spike to get you going out, and then it will fuel you for a bit during the session, or an oat smoothie with banana and berries. So when you should have that is really down to trial and error. So you should start practicing that and just seeing what your gut is like and how quickly you can go out and train on something like that. For me, it takes me about half an hour and I'm absolutely fine to go. On the run, you need to be thinking about if you're training for ultra distance, so anything over a marathon, you can eat real foods. But if you're training for a um, marathon, 70.3, Ironman, or anything underneath that in triathlon, you need to use gels. There is no rhyme or there's no kind of, oh, but I'll try the jelly babies or something else. You need gels. They're designed specifically so they get that carbohydrate to your body, to your blood when you need it fast. So that is one of those instances where you really need it fast. Now, you're not going to like gels. Gels are not designed to be like a gourmet experience. Maybe some of you find some that you like, but you have to get over this idea that you're going to find this perfect gel that you love and it's going to be like this delicious experience. It's not going to be a delicious experience. It serves a purpose for helping you train and race. And triathlon, half Ironman above, I recommend you eat solids on the bike and leave the gels till the run because you don't want to be potentially having gels for 5 hours or over. But don't forget afterwards either. So often what happens is even when somebody thinks, okay, I've got my porridge right, I'm going to do my gels during the run, and then everything kind of goes completely out of the window when you finish training. And actually, that is part of your training. So think about that hour after you've done your session as being part of your training, part of your recovery. So a protein shake within a 30-minute window, which is when your muscles can most benefit from it. So there is research proof that shows that 20 to 40-minute window is optimum. You want your slow release carbs. You're going to get back and you're going to think either you're going to feel sick or you're going to think, oh, I want a cake. Don't do that because it'll add to your inflammation. So you want a slow release carbohydrate with healthy fats and protein, something like Turkish eggs or scrambled egg, and hydrate with plenty of water. So carbs on the run, gels on the run, basically. These are my recommendations. As I say, I've been unfortunately doing this kind of stuff for like over 25 years. So I've had a lot of gels. They're not pleasant, but these out of all the ones I've tried, I think are the most palatable, have the best effect. Precision hydration, it's quite thick, but it's pretty tasteless. Velo Forte, if you like really natural ones, is made of like kind of fruits and vegetable juices. Some of those are actually quite nice. And Hilltop Honey Energy Gel is literally honey with some manuka in it. So it's got some vitamins as well. So that can be good. But you have to get your gut used to them. When you're not used to having them, you'll have them and your gut will feel a bit funny. So you are training your gut in your training to get used to them. That is why you need to start now. So for some of you listening, you might have a half marathon in February, you might have a marathon or something coming up in April. So now is the time you need to start using them. It'll improve your training, it'll improve your recovery, because if you're not having those gels on the run or your bike or whatever, what's happening is as you tire, your body's breaking down, your biomechanics is changing, so that you're more likely to get injury. And worst of all, you are likely to be going into your muscle stores to use as energy. You don't want to burn muscle, and you're going to feel less tired after your session. Yes, so this is what I'm saying about your muscle tissue. If you are not eating enough calories for your long run, for instance, so anything really over an hour we're thinking about here, your body is going to turn to either body fat, and then once you've used that, it's going to turn to muscle for energy. So let me be clear about that though. Anyone out there thinking, well, I've got lots of body fat, so that's great. It's just going to use body muscle. It doesn't really work like that. You've got to be thinking that it's going to be really impacting your muscle as well, and you don't want anything to take away from your muscle tissue, because that's already being affected by estrogen decline. Again, too little protein intake before, during, afterwards means that your muscles again are going to break down. And also you've got this chronic stress. So when we're training, we're in the fight or flight response. So high cortisol, which we already have in midlife due to hormone change. So we're a little bit less able to deal with the cortisol, and that has a inflammatory effect and breaks down muscle without the right nutrition. So this is why I often will say to people who I'm training for performance, what have you had? Have you had any gels? And I think everybody I'm training at the moment is saying no. So it's really important. So this is what you might want to have a pen to take this down. So you want to eat, for those people, and I'm just clarifying again, for those people who are training for endurance, half marathons and above. I'm not talking about anyone within the Kick-Ass Midlife Method community who's there for weight loss and strength training. It's for actually people training for performance. You need to eat the protein between 1.6 to 2.7 grams per kilo of body weight. Don't train fasted for long endurance sessions. Obviously, all of you are doing this anyway, if you're listening to this, strength training to preserve your lean mass, and also working with things to reduce your chronic stress. which is not just from your work, your life, but it is from training. You get stress from training. It's not a chronic stress. There is a difference, but anything you can do to lower cortisol. And we're going to come on to this. So cortisol, that fight or flight, adrenal response, estrogen makes us more susceptible to it. We can't deal with it as well. And in training, for long distance, it can really get us. So these are the things you really need to do after, during kind of training for these kind of events, which is slightly different from someone who is just here for weight loss when you're training for performance. You need to really think about, and this is goes for everybody, prioritizing your gut-friendly carbohydrates. So those are your slow release, fiber rich carbohydrates, oats, quinoa, whole grains, your vegetables, those kind of things. You know, our gut is really important. There's increasing amount of research which show that our gut affects our mood, our cognitive ability, our sleep, our health. So you really want to really boost your gut as much as possible, gut-friendly bacteria with the right type of carbohydrates. So reducing ultra-processed carbohydrates that spike blood sugar and gut inflammation, which of course we are doing with gels, but it's we have to do that. So therefore you need to make extra special attention to having that kind of fiber-rich options afterwards. Increase prebiotic fiber, onions, garlic, asparagus, and you can add probiotics. So yogurt, sauerkraut, kimchi, miso, that kind of thing. You can also use an acidophilus. So someone else I train in London has used a probiotic you can buy over the counter at a good health food store. You need to make sure you get the good acidophilus ones. And then your anti-inflammatory strategies post-training. So your hydration, 2 to 3 liters of water. Make sure you're drinking that water. Your antioxidant-rich foods, berries, dark leafy greens, kale, spinach, that kind of thing. Your ginger, omega-3 fats, your fish, flaxseed, walnuts, that kind of thing. So all of this actually is relevant to everybody, but you just need to pay special attention if you're training for performance. And then you can restore your gut barrier with collagen or bone broth, which nowadays you can buy in supermarkets as well, actually. And how much should you eat? Again, you might want to write this down. So for many of you, if you are training with me in the Kick-Ass community, you might have a nutritional intake set. And so it might be quite confusing for you on those days you train. You need to be thinking on the days of those big, long sessions that you've got, that you really need to be changing what you're having, because obviously you'll be burning about, or using up about maybe between 1,000 or 200 calories on your long run. I ran and obviously it depends on your weight, your height, how fast you're running, all of that. But for 2 hours 15 last week, I think I used 1,700 calories on that, and that is on top of what my total daily energy expenditure would be anyway, which is probably also around 2,100. It's a lot. So if you're trying to fuel by not eating anything extra, you'll be breaking down muscle, you'll get injured, you'll get tired, and it's not just the day of the training session, it will impact the whole rest of that week. You will probably realize sometimes the week after a long session, you'll be thinking, God, I feel really tired. I wonder why I feel really tired. You might be grouchy, you might be like really starving, and you might associate the starving and wanting to snack with the training session, but it's sometimes people don't associate the reason why they're so absolutely knackered is to do with the training session, and it's not just the day after, it can last all week. So you can see what you need to do for these intense sessions. So 5 to 7 grams per kilo for like long Sunday runs, protein spread across the day. So obviously you don't want just 2.7 grams per kilo all in one block. You spread it out through the day, and also those healthy fats. So here's what I do, just to break it down a little bit to make it maybe simpler for some of you to see it in the way that I do it. So I would have, and this would be the same whether I was out on a ultra run, 3 hour run, whether I went out on a bike for an Ironman ride, or marathon training, I would generally have porridge with chia, flax seeds, and a banana. Or sometimes, if I'm in a real rush, I'll have a bagel with peanut butter and banana. But I tend to always have the porridge now. During a session, I use precision hydration. I don't love them, but they do the job. Um, and to give you an idea of how you need to get your gut used to it, on my ultra, I took a precision hydration block. So they also do blocks, which I would only recommend for ultra because you have to chew them. Um, I had 30 grams of carbohydrate every 30 minutes for 18 hours. So yeah, that's a lot over about 1,000 carbohydrates. And as you know, I'm still 59, 60 kilos. That weight has never changed. So I don't put on weight by having that amount of carbohydrate. Recovery protein, I have that within 30 minutes of when I get back. And I should just add, when you get back after the gels, you generally feel a little bit sick. Honestly, you just have to force yourself to have a protein shake. I have water or coconut water or ginger cordial, sometimes with a bit of salt. Um, and I have a 10-minute sleep. Honestly, it's a game changer. If you go, put your timer on, have a 10-minute sleep. Often I'll do the protein first, have the 10-minute sleep, and then come back to the water. And then the week afterwards, I always try and make sure I have some fresh squeezed juice because it gets that really helps my gut to recover from all those gels. Obviously, I eat lots of vegetables anyway. And for breakfast or a second breakfast after the porridge as a recovery, I'll have something like eggs with sourdough bread, avocado, salad, or kale, just to try and get in as much goodness as possible, because you are affecting your gut with that amount of gels, but unless you have them, you are risking burning your muscle fibers, getting injured, and also just not being able to do the session properly. So I know that's a lot to take in.